close your eyes and breathe. The air of night is heavy, still, endless. Shadows stretch across forgotten forests. Winds move through ruined castles, and in distant villages firelight flickers faintly behind shuttered windows. Tonight, we step not into the bright halls of history, but into its hidden chambers, into the stories whispered at night, murmured by firesides, carried from parent to child, from village to village. Tales of vampires, tales of werewolves, tales of ancient shadows that follow humanity wherever it goes. These myths are not only strange curiosities, they are mirrors of our fears. Fear of the dark, fear of death, fear of ourselves. So let us walk slowly and quietly through these stories, listen and let the silence grow deep. As we journey through the origins of vampires, of wolves that walk as men, and of the restless night itself. Before velvet capes, before candlelit castles, before the name Dracula, there was the earth, the soil, the grave. The first vampires were not elegant strangers, they were the dead who refused to rest. In Eastern Europe, people spoke of the opier. In Greece, the vrikolakas. In Romania, the strigoi, each one a restless corpse, a spirit returned to hunger. Imagine it. A villager dies suddenly. Weeks later, crops begin to wither, children fall ill, cattle grow thin, and whispers rise. Perhaps the dead man has not stayed in his grave. Fear drove people into the night. Graves were dug open, corpses were inspected, and sometimes, terrifyingly, the dead looked alive. Skin flush, lips red, a body strangely preserved. And so came the rituals. A stake through the heart, a head severed, sometimes fire to burn the flesh to ash. The vampire was more than a monster. It was an explanation. When death came too soon or too cruelly, it was safer to believe in the hungry dead than to admit life's chaos. But beneath this belief lies a darker thought, that death does not free us, that hunger follows us even into the grave. Where the vampire represents death returned, the werewolf represents life transformed. Not a corpse rising from the earth, but a man losing himself to the beast within. The forests of Europe were never silent. Wolves prowled in shadows, their howls broke the stillness of night. To villagers, they were not far-off animals, they were neighbors, predators, rivals. And so it was not difficult to imagine that a man might become a wolf. The Greeks told of Lycaon, a king who offended Zeus with an unholy feast of human flesh. The punishment was cruel. Lycaon was changed into a wolf. His name echoes in our word, lycanthropy. In medieval Europe, the werewolf was a warning. By day, a man might smile, speak kindly, break bread, but under the moon he could run wild, teeth bared, fur bristling, blood upon his lips. And in those centuries of fear, accusations were everywhere. Men stood trial for being wolves. They confessed to roaming the forests, to tearing at flesh, to feasting on blood. Confessions drawn not by truth, but by torture. Were they monsters? Or were they victims, crushed beneath the weight of suspicion? The werewolf asks us a question that still lingers. How thin is the line between man and beast? The Black Death spread like a shadow across Europe. Bodies piled high, villages emptied. Silence fell where once there was life. And in this silence, fear took root. The gravediggers began to notice things. A body exhumed might look too alive. The lips still red, the mouth stained with blood, the shroud torn as if chewed. The dead, it seemed, had been feeding. But science was centuries away. People did not know that decomposition could mimic life, that gases could make a corpse groan, that blood could seep from the nose and mouth, that the skin could tighten giving the illusion of fresh flesh. And so the vampire became the explanation. The plague was not only a sickness, it was a curse. The dead rising and draining the living, and so the people defended themselves as best they could. Garlic at the doors, crucifixes above beds, stakes and holy water. The vampire became the shape of terror itself, the unknown, stalking silently, taking life one by one. As vampires haunted graveyards, werewolves haunted forests, and in the age of witch trials, both were swept into the same fire. In the 16th century, hysteria gripped Europe. Witches were everywhere, it was said, and with them, werewolves. In France, a man named Gilles Garnier stood accused. He confessed, perhaps forced, that a spirit gave him an ointment, that when he rubbed it on his body, his skin bristled, his shape shifted, and he hunted like a wolf. Children went missing, fear spread, and so Gilles was burned. But not only him, many others, men, women, even children, were tried as werewolves, executed as beasts. The truth, however, was often simpler. These were the lonely, the outcasts, hermits at the edges of society, strange men, strange women, easier to call them wolves than to see them as human. The werewolf trials tell us something chilling, that monsters are sometimes born not from truth, but from fear of those who are different. The 18th and 19th centuries brought light, reason, and science. The shadows receded, but still the monsters endured. Now they have changed shape. Writers took the raw, fearful folklore and transformed it into literature. John Polidori's The Vampire introduced the aristocrat predator, elegant, mysterious, a man of noble bearing with hunger beneath his smile. Bram Stoker gave us Dracula, the final seal on the vampire's image, cloaked in black, eyes burning like embers, moving between castle and coffin. The vampire was no longer just the bloated corpse in the grave. It was now temptation, romance, danger that draws you close even as it destroys. And the werewolf too evolved, now tied to the moon, to madness, to the terror of losing oneself completely. Folklore became fiction, fiction became legend, and still, beneath the velvet and candlelight, the same shadows remained, the hunger of the dead, the beast within. Even now we tell these stories. We watch them on glowing screens. We dream of them in the dark. Why do they remain? Because they are not only monsters, they are pieces of us. The vampire is our fear of death and our longing to live forever. The werewolf is the wild rage we cannot tame, the untamed creature hiding in our own blood, and across the world we find their kin. In China, the jiangshi, a corpse that hops, stiff, hungry for life. In the Americas, tales of skinwalkers, shapeshifters of terrible power. In Africa, the impundulu, a bird of lightning that drinks blood. Everywhere humanity goes, it creates the same shadows. Everywhere, we whisper the same fear, that the night is not empty, that something walks beside us. And now, the night has grown long, the fire burns low, and the old stories fade. Rest now, close your eyes, let the shadows return to silence. The vampire is not here, waiting at your window. The werewolf is not howling beyond your door. They are only stories. Stories carried across centuries, from whispers in the dark to words spoken now. But as you drift into sleep, remember, these monsters were never just about the night. They were about us, our hunger, our fear, our untamed hearts. Good night, sleep deeply, and let the echoes of these old tales rest with you in dreams.